Get on board the Bernier bus train. Come get on board the Bernier bus train. Once you hear that clickety-clack, there ain't no time for turning back. Oh, get on board the Bernier bus train.
Good morning, USA, and welcome to another episode of the Bernie or Bust Show. I'd like to make the case today that Elizabeth Warren needs to drop out sooner rather than later. I'd also like to make the case that her candidacy has been about stopping Bernie from its very inception. If it comes down to Bernie versus Biden in the beginning stages of the primaries and everyone else drops out, especially Elizabeth, then we will probably win. For me, the chief objective is to cause Warren to drop out in the early stages because she siphons off upper middle class educated Sanders voters in the primary contests. If Mayor Pete stays in the race, he will become a protest vote for the stubborn, capitalistic, never Bernie, blue dog Democrats. They are smart enough to know that he can't win without increasing his support from black voters and grubby populists. Even though the general election already is in the bag for Bernie, and it has been since 2016, and the plutocrats are freaking out about this, by the way, their ace in the hole is to use Elizabeth, and she knows all about this plan because of her meetings with Hillary and other DNC insiders such as David Brock, Michael Kives, Darnell Strom, and others, to dilute Bernie's ability to win outright in the first round. That's why Elizabeth is there. I don't think the plutocrats believe that she can defeat Donald Trump, and they're not that stupid. They know that she can't defeat Donald Trump. She's there to defeat Bernie. So they either want to hand it to her in the primaries or cause a contested election, which is why there were so many candidates in the primary contest this time. So they're trying to dilute Bernie's voter base from the progressives, and that's why Elizabeth came in the first place. That's why she stayed out last time. She made a deal last time to stay out, and we know this. Kyle Kulinski got the proof on that. So we know she made a deal to stay out last time and to come in this time, and the proof of that is in the leaked Podesta emails, where we can see Michael Kives and Darnell Strom, Hollywood talent agents, working behind the scenes to get a flood of Democratic hopefuls, and Elizabeth was one of them. She's there for one reason only, to stop Bernie Sanders. She'll either make it possible for Biden to win the nomination, or by leading to a contested primary and allowing the superdelegates to come in the second round of the convention and hand it to Bernie, or she will win. But it looks like lately she's been tanking. She's dropped a lot of points lately because of her botched healthcare message. And so what we're seeing is that the two-pronged attack of Elizabeth and Joe Biden is getting scary. It's getting nerve-wracking for the plutocrats. They got white knuckles now because they are afraid that Elizabeth won't stay in it long enough to keep Bernie's progressive base from being undecided about whom to support. Bernie's populist base is not moving. They're sticky, as Megan Day has said. They're sticky. But the upper crust Democrats are fickle, and they've been swinging Mayor Pete, Elizabeth Warren. There are even Bernie Sanders supporters who are not as sticky, the more affluent, well-educated Bernie Sanders supporters. And so for us to bring those voters in, and it's important to bring them in because they're the ones who vote in primary contests. The voters who don't vote in primary contests are the reason that Bernie will win in the general election handily, easily. He's got a lot of support in the general election that he won't have in the primary election. And that's why we have to we have to make sure that Elizabeth drops out before the primaries get to Super Tuesday, I'd say. If the race narrows down to Bernie versus Biden as early as Super Tuesday, then Bernie will probably have it sewn up. It'll happen well before July. The fact will dawn on people, the realization that there's no way Biden is going to win in a general election with Donald Trump. And so they'll swing over behind Bernie and we'll have a new era. So progressives, trust your gut. Elizabeth Warren is not one of us. If you're trying to figure out if you still like Elizabeth and you're trying to figure out strategically why she shouldn't be there, but your heart isn't in it, you need to understand a few things. Her candidacy isn't, I mean, she antagonizes the super rich, but that's just to try to confuse us so that we'll vote for her. She doesn't have real intentions to enact Medicare for all. That's clear, and that's why her support is tanking recently. Her campaign looks suspiciously to Nathan Robinson as though it's designed to stave off revolution. She's here to save the plutocrats. I love markets. Victor Tiffany tells me I should not make fun of Elizabeth, but when she speaks, I just see how disingenuous she is. I just see how much like Hillary she is, although she's got a folksy way of speaking about herself. Once you see all of the evidence against her, you understand that when she's speaking, she's not real. And my gut said that early on, especially when she wouldn't come into the race with Bernie, when Bernie asked her to last time, and then she wouldn't endorse Bernie early on, unlike Alexandria and some of the squad this time have done. But as time went on, I could just see. And then I started to look into it. She worked at a Harvard Law School for training generations of elite corporate lawyers. She did legal work for big corporations accused of wrongdoing, collected donations from billionaires, held secret meetings with investment bankers and major Democratic Party donors, and stood up and applauded when Donald Trump vowed that America would never become a socialist country. Even at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, her most prominent initiative on behalf of ordinary borrowers, Warren brought in former Wall Street bankers, tasking financial foxes with guarding the henhouse. That's a big one. We could look into this more. I've been watching leftist commentators about how the Consumer Protection Bureau was designed really to protect the plutocrats more than it was designed to protect consumers. But you'd have to know a lot more about it than I do to make the case off the top of your head. But and that would be a good future Bernie or Bust show episode. Here's some evidence that Warren is already losing from Crystal Ball.
For the future of the working class. Because in essence, these two men also represent a stark divide in where the future lies for the Democratic Party. Do they continue their march?
This is good. So she's saying if it does come down to Biden versus Bernie, and then she unpacks the ramifications of that.
Towards being an upper-class suburban party of the professional managerial class, plus the working-class minorities who can't stomach the other side's racism? Or do they start the process of reclaiming the mantle of the party of the people that centers a multiracial working-class coalition? One path continues the Democratic Party in the direction of woke signaling while selling out on economics. The other embraces economic populism as an essential and non-negotiable core of the party. That is the argument I would love to watch play out explicitly in this primary process. There's also some reason to believe that Bernie may continue to surge and challenge Biden directly for frontrunner status. Bernie's already enjoying the strongest period of his campaign with a slow and steady rise over the past 2 months, and he's certainly emerging as the most trusted candidate on two issues of central importance to primary voters, healthcare and climate. But still, it's not quite enough. Enter billionaire Bloomberg, stage right wing. Now look, Bloomberg doesn't have a path to be the nominee, but as we've discussed a bit already on the show, he could take a few points from this candidate or from that candidate. The only person who is certain to not be impacted at all is Bernie Sanders, whose supporters are the most committed and certainly the most billionaire antagonistic. Already Bloomberg has jumped up to 5% in a pair of new national polls. It's amazing what $37 million in ad buys can get you. No one with literally unlimited funds and a prominent profile should be underestimated. But maybe even more significant for Bernie is the role that Bloomberg can play as a perfect foil for his campaign. Just think about it. Bernie has directly declared himself to be on the side of the working class in this nation's ongoing class war, and also literally stated that billionaires should not exist. Sure, Tom Steyer is already in the race, but no one really takes him seriously, and his weakness really just makes it feel mean to take shots at him. But Bloomberg is another matter. He's an oligarch and George W. Bush supporter trying to buy this election, and it appears that Bernie welcomes his hatred. Just take a listen to him the other night in South Carolina. Bernie has already worked Bloomberg into his routine.
What do I mean when I say the current political system is corrupt? All right, that's one thing. It means that if any of you had a couple of $1 billion, you could announce, and I know many of you do, I'm sure this room is loaded with billionaires. It's usually the audience that we attract. Any one of you can announce your candidacy for president, you would be taken seriously, even if you were the dumbest person on earth.
Yeah. He had previously inveighed against Bloomberg's arrogance and even accused him of undermining American democracy, which in a way he really is. Yes. Clearly, while Bernie wears kid gloves with Elizabeth Warren and is even fairly muted in his criticism of his friend Joe Biden, considering some of the things he certainly could say about Biden, he feels no such reservations with the billionaire businessman. Bloomberg is not and will never be Bernie's friend. And honestly, Bernie Unleashed is the best Bernie. Yeah. Bloomberg, who is not only a corporatist but also a neocon, could not be a more perfect fit for Bernie and his class warfare campaign. So you've got Biden still holding tight at the top, a new Bloomberg dynamic helping to elevate Bernie, and a messy pileup among the wine track candidates of the affluent white liberals that is essentially neutering that vote. It sure does seem to be shaking out as a contest between...
The wine track vote is what we have to do. I want to teach you to sing the Bernie or Bust song so that you can sing it to the wine track people you know. Hey, Boomer, I got a song for you. Because they're not going to watch the Bernie or Bust show, and they're not going to learn the song. But if you learn the song and you sing it to them nonstop, they might figure out that Elizabeth is not their candidate. It's not going to work with Elizabeth.
Between Biden and Bernie, a battle of ideology, generation, and values. The grassroots will go toe-to-toe with the super PACs. May the best candidate for the working class prevail.
That's it. So looking at it that way, looking at it coming down to quickly to a two-candidate race, that's when the plutocrats are totally going to lose their shit. Yeah, if you want to learn the song, I've got it in the Revolt Against Plutocracy rap sheet. Teach this song to your fave boomer. I've got it on a shared Google Drive. You can download it. You can send it to all your friends. And yeah, you'll hear the song at the beginning. You probably already heard it at the beginning of the show. And it's just that same recording. But if you want to put it on your own hard drive and use it as your ringtone or whatever else you clever, technologically advanced young people want to do, then great. That's wonderful. Now here's a Jacobin magazine conclusion, and then I'll show you who wrote it. No political obstacle stood between President Obama and a better housing policy. So we're going back to 2008. On the contrary, his heavily bank-slanted policy cost the Democrats dearly. Mass foreclosure and the associated economic wreckage is a large part of why his party was crushed in the 2010 midterms. Because African Americans were disproportionately victimized at all levels of the housing and foreclosure crises, they stood to gain the most from better policy. But because Obama's approach failed cataclysmically, the first black president in American history turned out to be a disaster for black wealth. And that's what we have under neoliberalism. That's what we have under both Democrats and Republicans. And Obama was probably the most neoliberal of all of them. And now the article, and I hope you read the whole thing. It's recent. It's like a couple days old or 1 day old. And it's long, so, but do this article. Matt Bruenig and Ryan Cooper, How Obama Destroyed Black Wealth. I'll link to that. And you can see why Elizabeth Warren's continuation of Obama's policies in many ways would prove just as harmful. Hillary Clinton, Russia backed Trump and Bernie hurt me with late endorsement. So this is the woman who, on whose behalf Michael Kives and Darnell Strom were working when they took out Tulsi. You may remember the WikiLeaked email where they put the hammer down on Tulsi's candidacy because she had the audacity to resign from her position with the DNC and to support and to endorse Bernie Sanders. And so the wrath of this woman and her machine has come after her like fury, with fury, like the Furies. It's been horrible for Tulsi because she dared to disrespect, in their words, Hillary Clinton's candidacy, and they were disrespecting Bernie even then. Let me show you that email. There's an article I wrote called "Here's Wiki-Proof that that the Clinton machine is behind the flood of new presidential hopefuls." And from that article, Darnell Strom wrote the original email and included Kives in the CC line. Kives then forwarded the message to Hillary and to Podesta with the additional Hamid dropped. I think that was a typo, or it's short for Mohammed, either way. I assume this means that he and Strom were bragging that they had dropped the hammer on Gabbard's career and assumed that she would never rise again because of their omnipotent ability to ruin anyone the cabal deemed deserving of such treatment. What's going on this time around? Apparently the wealthy club, you ain't in it, that decides these things has a different plan. And Elizabeth Warren is a big part of that plan. This is the email. It's from Darnell Strom, Hamid dropped, to Tulsi Gabbard, CC Michael Kives. And that's where they said, Hillary Clinton will be our party's nominee, and you standing on ceremony to support the sinking Bernie Sanders ship is disrespectful to Hillary Clinton. And in respect to Hillary Clinton, Elizabeth Warren stayed out of the contest that time, and she came into the contest this time out of respect to Hillary Clinton. I have a number of articles on Medium. Another one is called "What the DNC Doesn't Want You to Know, What Doesn't Want You to Find Out About Elizabeth Warren." If you leftist media, that's going to be the end of this show. Leftist media need to get on board the Bernie or Bust train. Just go, if you want to see all these articles, go on Medium and click at Alan Kit Howell, and then you can read some of these. A lot of them are giving you information about Elizabeth Warren. This one, for example, is called "What the DNC Does Not Want You to Find Out About Elizabeth Warren," and we've got bullet points that you can share with your favorite boomers. Elizabeth Warren secured an endorsement from the supposedly far-left Working Families Party after her daughter donated $45,000. Warren and Clinton have been talking behind the scenes. Elizabeth Warren was in favor of increased defense spending until 2019. She has taken money from Wall Street and large corporations. She supported and voted for Republican Ben Carson as Secretary of Housing. Her daughter is the co-founder of Health Allies, now part of United Health Group. This explains the waffling on single-payer Medicare. As lawyer, Elizabeth Warren worked to limit Dow Chemicals' liability to breast implant victims. Elizabeth Warren defends Israeli shelling of Gaza schools and hospitals. She was a Republican until she was 47. She declares war on lobbying and then hires a lobbyist one day later. More on the Working Families Party. Wiki-Proof that the Clinton machine was behind her candidacy. She's forced to admit that her son did go to a $17,000 a year private school after footage captures her telling a mother that her children went to public schools. She's been lying about other things too, like about her. She said she was denied the opportunity to be a teacher because she was pregnant, which turns out not to be true. Her voting record stated goals for foreign policy aligned closely with Hillary Rodham Clinton. She plans to pivot in the general. She intends to take corporate money, she said so herself, including dark money, in the general election. She voted for Trump's military budget increases more than once. She says she's open to a middle ground approach with health care, and that's why she's tanking in the polls. She applauded Trump for saying America will never be a socialist nation, and she endorsed Hillary in 2016. So, we've got lots of reasons to put the hammer down on her candidacy. And if we successfully do it, then we've got a way to bring it down to a two-candidate race sooner rather than later. Now, this is Victor Tiffany. I'm going to end with this. Revolt against plutocracy. Busters needed to hammer revolution. We're hammering the word hammer because we're still disturbed by how it was used against Tulsi. 5 months before getting covered in the mainstream media in 2015, Bernie or Bust got extensive coverage in a Newsweek story, and we've recently gotten some coverage from Newsweek, and we're trying to, not shame, but we're trying to coax maybe and prod the leftist commentators that we love so much to cover the idea that there are way more than enough Bernie or Trump voters and then combine them with Bernie or Bust voters, and it's a foregone conclusion that you can't get a corporatist candidate to win in the general election. There are enough of the Bernie Sanders sticky support voters that it's just not going to happen. And this story is not being covered adequately by our leftist media. We have a list here of people. We'd like you to share this, put it in the comments of their videos or in the comments of their articles. These are the people who are on our side who still have not been covering the Bernie or Bust movement or the Bernie or Trump phenomenon. I call that a phenomenon because it's not organized. It's like a whirlwind. It's a force of nature, but we have to get the word out about it and reckon with it. And these are the people who should be, at least ideologically, inclined to support the coverage of this movement and this phenomenon, the Bernie or Bust movement and the Bernie or Trump phenomenon. The Humanist Report, The Rational National, David Dole, Michael Brooks Show, Crystal Ball, Sagar and Jetty, Progressive Soapbox, Secular Talk, Kyle Kulinski, Joe Rogan, In These Times, Jacobin Magazine, Current Affairs, Jimmy Dore, Truth Out, Truth Dig, Chris Hedges, Redacted Tonight, Garland Nixon, Mint Press News, Common Dreams, Chicago Tribune, Majority Report, David Pacman, Convo Couch, No Filter TYT, Tim Black at Real Tim Black, Jordan Cheriton, The Real News, Ring of Fire, Radio. Do not contact Nico House. He's already covered Bernie or Bust, but it would be nice if he covered it again. And Ben Dixon has refused to cover Bernie or Bust. So have Victor, Tiffany, come on your shows, if you're watching this, guys and girls, and cover, with or without Victor speaking to you about it on your shows or in your articles, cover the Bernie or Bust movement and the Bernie or Trump phenomenon. We give a shout out to Crystal Ball because she did cover the data from Thomas Piketty, Brahmin Left versus Merchant Right, regarding poor and poorly educated voters and how they've voted in the last 70 years or so. So she's talking about that. She, at least once, she talked about that. But that would be really good for the rest of the leftists to cover. So here, and I'll link to this, are all of their Twitter messages. Twitter has suspended my account, so it's trickier for me to send these messages. But you can if you still have Twitter. And please send, you could send this link. You could send the link to the Bernie or Buh show. You could send the link to, or just talk in your own words, just a sentence about why they need to cover Bernie or Trump. Or it's really political malfeasance if they don't. This is something that's happening, and it's real, and it's going to influence the election, especially the general election. And it could influence the primary election if they could just get the word out. So please help us with that. And learn the Bernie or Buh song. I'll let you hear that as I ride into the sunrise this morning. Hope you have a great day. Keep on burning.
Get on board the Bernie or Buh string. Come get on board the Bernie or Buh string. Once you hear that clickety-clack, there ain't no time for turning back. Go get on board